Hi everyone, and welcome back to the channel. We're now getting very close to the Game Week 1 deadline, so I'm going to show you my latest draft and talk through exactly where my thinking is currently at. For anyone new to the channel, I'm the 10th best manager in the world based on the average rank of the last 3 years, and this season I'm going to do something different. I'm currently planning to bench boost in Game Week 1, but with a twist. I'm going to go without Erling Haaland. Now that's obviously a big decision. Haaland's massively owned, and he's probably going to be the biggest captain in Game Week 1, so if he hauls, it could hurt a lot. But I'm not just going without Haaland for the sake of it. At 15.5 million, I think the more interesting question is not only will Haaland haul, but is spending 15.5 million on Haaland the best possible use of money to maximise the points for my Game Week 1 team? And particularly when I'm bench boosting, at the moment I don't think so. But before I show you my latest draft, I want to explain why. I think the first thing to make really clear is that this isn't an argument against Haaland as an FPL pick. Now, I think he's the best goal scorer in the league, he's got penalties, and he can be incredibly explosive, we all know that. So there's absolutely scenarios where he could completely destroy a no Haaland draft in Game Week 1. My issue is the 15.5 million price tag that comes with him, because we don't just get Haaland in isolation. In FPL, there's an opportunity cost behind every choice we make. So when we're comparing a Haaland draft with a no Haaland draft, we're not really asking, is it Haaland or no Haaland? What I think we're actually asking is, well, this is Haaland plus some cheaper players I need to afford him versus everything that we can build with that 15.5 million elsewhere. And I think that's particularly important for my strategy because I'm looking to bench boost in Game Week 1. In past seasons, normally we have 4 million, 4.5 million players sitting on the bench, and that's not usually a massive problem because they'll be starting and they'll be getting a couple of points. But this season, players cost more, and on a bench boost, all 15 players matter. So suddenly that extra 1 million on defense or midfield or the forwards, that matters. But this time it's 15.5 million. And when you remove Haaland from that team, suddenly you've got this enormous amount of money to improve all these weaker positions. So for me, Haaland isn't necessarily just competing with one other premium player, for example. He's competing with probably 4 or 5 other upgrades you can make across that squad. So that's the comparison I'm interested in. Okay, so starting with the goalkeepers and defenders. So I've gone with David Raya, Kinski, Gabriel, Calafiori, Maguire, Tarkowski, and Williams. So just to explain those goalkeeper choices first. The reason why I've gone with David Raya here is that there's a lot of noise in pre-season about Arsenal defenders and particularly who might be joining, who might be starting in Game Week 1. So I just think the easiest way to mitigate and push this noise to one side is just simply to get the Arsenal goalkeeper that no one's questioning and we know will start the season and play basically every game if he's fit and available. And obviously that's David Raya. On the one hand, he is 0.5 million more than another Arsenal defender, for example, a Ben White or a Mosquera. But I just will happily pay that 0.5 premium without Haaland and that additional money, knowing that it's one less headache I'm basically going to have each game week, and I can just simply start him. Because Arsenal, obviously, last season were the best defence in terms of goals conceded and expected goals, it's just easy routes to points that I'm not really having to think about. Kinski, on the other hand, obviously last season Spurs wasn't a good defence, but when De Zerbi did take over at the end, their defence did improve in quality. So I think there's just a little bit of room for potential there. Maybe Game Week 1, he's not going to be getting a clean sheet, but he could be getting save points. You only need 3 saves for that additional point. And in Game Week 2, you got Newcastle at home. It's not particularly an easy fixture, but obviously the noise around Newcastle in pre-season, maybe they will struggle at the start of the season. Potentially that's a clean sheet there. I'm not entirely sure what the market odds are looking for there, but again, I'm not even sure I particularly would start Kinski in goal in Game Week 2. He's just a cheap 4.5 million keeper, and there's no 4 million keepers currently that we know will be starting. So Kinski's just a good one, 20% owned. Just gives me a bit of coverage as well, just in case Spurs do keep a clean sheet. I've got at least a leg into that Spurs defence for Game Week 1. Now, because obviously I'm not going with Haaland, I've got a lot of money to spend, so I've gone with a heavily stacked defence here. Starting with Gabriel, last season, he was the main focal point for corners and set pieces. In terms of attacking returns, I think, what did he get? 3 goals, 5 assists. So he did slightly overperform his XGI, which was only about 4.5. But I still think pre-season, what we've seen in the limited games he has played, he is still that focal point. Arteta's not going to sort of abandon this idea from corners and set pieces being the main attacking threat. He's just offering points. We know he's going to be playing. We know he'll still get some attacking returns. He'll get that DEFCON. I like him, and obviously he's a premium, but without Haaland, I've got that additional money. Now, the next defender I'm looking at is Calafiori. With Arsenal, there's a little bit of debate here whether you do want to be getting Calafiori or you want to get Mosquera or even Ben White. And if I was just going to the next 11 tool here and have a look at what they offer. So, next 11, if I go into their stats here, and I'll just the filter by per 90 defenders, and I'll just have a look at Arsenal, for example. So if we filter initially by expected goals involvements, last season Timber was the best, Calafiori, Gabriel, White, Nkapé. Mosquera's at the bottom, only above Lewis Skelly, but I don't think he'll play much this season. Timber's obviously injured, so discount that idea. Therefore, Calafiori is the next best, 0.22 XGI per 90. Gabriel, well, we've got him. Ben White, potentially I could consider him, but a little bit below what Calafiori is returning. Mosquera, on the other hand, 0.07, he's not really an attacking threat. But if we were to change this to Defcon per 90, it does kind of flip that image. Gabriel's the best, but obviously we've got Gabriel. Mosquera is the second best defender for Defcon for Arsenal, followed by Nkapé, but I don't think Nkapé will start above Calafiori. You got Ben White, Saliba, well, he's injured, Timber. Calafiori's, again, the second worst for Defcon per 90, only above Lewis Skelly. So it's a bit of a trade-off here. What do you value in Game Week 1? Do you value Defcon or do you value attacking returns? Now, there's a little bit of context that maybe because Arsenal obviously playing at home against Coventry, dominating a lot of the ball, won't necessarily therefore be making as many defensive actions as you would be incurring away at home or against a better opposition. So yeah, maybe you do want to be considering Calafiori for those attacking returns. He has adopted a lot of attacking positions in pre-season, Calafiori. Not necessarily sure if he would be in the Premier League, but it's just something to consider and why I'm liking that. Now, moving away from Arsenal defenders, the first option I've gone for here is Maguire as the centre-back. I think this season, because Casemiro is not here, Maguire, what we've seen in pre-season so far, is the main output for set pieces, corners, free kicks, etc. He's also Defcon strong, so you could consider maybe a Dalot who's got a bit more attacking output but weaker Defcon, or you can consider Maguire who, yeah, his retrospective data isn't as good, but now we consider him to be the main focal point for Man United. His Defcon's also a bit better. Hull, Ipswich the first 2 game weeks. I just like him for 5 million. I'm pretty sure he will be playing. I don't expect De Ligt to be starting. He's only just come back from a major injury. Martinez as well could maybe partner Maguire, but I don't think he would necessarily start over Maguire. Now, the fourth defender I've gone for here is Tarkowski. Tarkowski's a player that I think a lot of people have been overlooking. He's only selected by 9.7% of teams, but last season he was a major Defcon player. He also got 2 goals, 3 assists, so he does offer a little bit of attacking returns. Now, if we go onto the Next 11 app and actually use their projections tool, which is a new feature they've just added, they actually project what the Defcon will be looking like for any players. And for Tarkowski, Game Week 1, we're looking at a projection of 9.8 Defcon, followed by 10.3, 9.8. So these are really strong Defcon numbers that have been projected for Tarkowski here. And if so, that's an easy additional 2 points you could be achieving for a defender. Obviously, if you partner that with a clean sheet and lots of maybe other attacking, or not attacking, but lots of other underlying metrics that maybe Tarkowski could be providing, you could obviously then be looking at bonus points, etc. So you could be looking at, a 10-point return Game Week 1 for a defender that's only be selected by 10% of teams. That's really why I like him. There's other Everton defenders you could be considering. I think maybe if one defender you want to have a look at is potentially Branthwaite. He's only 0.5 million cheaper, but in terms of what they're offering, in terms of Defcon, I just like Tarkowski. He's a little bit clear of Branthwaite. His expected goal involvements as well, a bit higher, actually it's double of what Branthwaite was offering, but it's just some room for manoeuvre there if you do maybe want to save 0.5 million and reinvest it elsewhere. But currently, just because of the money I've got available, I like Tarkowski. Everything we understand so far from pre-season, what David Moyes has been saying is that Tarkowski will continue to start, and so therefore I'm going to keep him in my team. Okay, and the fifth defender I've chose is Nico Williams of Nottingham Forest. Now, last season, he didn't particularly have a fantastic season, nor did Nottingham Forest. Only 2 goals, 3 assists, 6 XGI, which isn't too bad. But the main appeal for Nico Williams is that because Glasner is now the manager for Forest this season, and what we've seen in pre-season so far is that Glasner's still playing that formation, that 3-4-3, that he was well known for playing with Crystal Palace. And because of that, Williams has been getting in some really attacking positions as a wing-back, up on that left and right-hand side, and even been getting involved in some set pieces, corners. He's been in that box, lots of attacking potential there. I just like what we can see for Nico Williams potentially. You know, that attacking flair with some set pieces. He's not DEFCON strong, so I'm not expecting anything there. But the other Nottingham Forest defenders, Milenkovic, Murillo, particularly coming to mind, 5.5 million. So Williams, 0.5 million cheaper, but he's got a lot stronger attacking output. Leeds at home is a good fixture, I think. He's not particularly great run though. It's Liverpool away, Spurs, Villa. Not until game week 5 do they have Coventry game. But I just think for 5 million, he's owned by 12% of teams. I think Nico Williams is a good differential, and I really like differentials in FPL. It's something I'm always considering. So just want to keep an eye on. Seen a lot of good things in preseason so far. I think he's a good, cheap defender that I'll be having in my game week 1 team. Okay, now moving on to the midfield. I've gone for quite a stacked midfield here. So I go for Enzo Lefebvre, Wirtz, Fernandes, Mbeumo, and Szoboszlai. Now, starting with the obvious, really, Bruno Fernandes, big player. Last season, Premier League sister record, game week 1, Hull, game week 2, Ipswich. I don't think we need to explain too much there. He's still got the set piece, he's got penalties, and is a good option. Currently, I'm earmarking him to be my captain, so still heavily believe in him. I'm counterparting him with Mbeumo. The reason for that is that Mbeumo's been really positive this so far in pre-season. It doesn't seem that Šeško will be starting game week 1. Now, I'm not too certain on that. We'll have to get a bit more information from Carrick, but if that means Šeško isn't playing, Mbeumo will likely play that 9 role as the striker. And he just offers a bit more attacking potential for that reason. I mean, looking stats for last season for Mbeumo, 11 goals, 3 assists, 17 XGI. And that was playing in a very position of obviously on the wings, but also in the strike position. I just think Mbeumo was a good option. He was also taking a few corners as well and free kicks with Bruno Fernandes. So he's just trying to round off that position where maybe Fernandes isn't taking the corners from a particular side of the pitch and Mbeumo's taking them in that example. He's 8 million, so there's a bit of opportunity cost here. I could be downgrading him somewhere quite further, for example, Pascal Gross. But I just like what Mbeumo offers. I'm really just trying to attack as well. Game week 1 and game week 2. He's owned by 26% of managers, so he's not a big differential. There's obviously lots of other people backing him, but a little bit of synergy there, maybe with Bruno Fernandes. I think I'll just revisit this one close to the deadline, but I just like what Mbeumo offers currently. The next one is Dominik Szoboszlai. So again, it's not someone that's been underrated, particularly 40% of managers. He's obviously well backed. The reason I'm just going with him is that because Salah's left now, he'll be on corners, he'll be on free kicks as we saw last season, but also there's a bit of penalty share there. Whether Isak is starting every week would impact whether Szoboszlai would be on penalties, but what we've seen last season when Isak was starting, he's still not that 90 minutes man. And Iriola's made a bit of an emphasis about his players not being fit to play 90 minutes week in, week out. So I think potentially we could be seeing Isak getting subs off around that 70 minutes mark. And that means just those last 20 minutes and the additional time, if there's any penalties that Liverpool could be gaining, it just means that Szoboszlai could be assuming those. And that's just another route to points that maybe other people aren't considering. And a bit like with Man United, I'm partnering here with Wirtz. Iraola is quite insistent that Wirtz this season will be that 10 position behind Isak. I like him just in case he's on those corners and free kicks. We saw in pre-season, he's been training on corners a little bit. So whether he's just complimenting Szoboszlai there, I like that. And obviously last season, he wasn't a big achiever. Only 5 goals, 4 assists, 12 XGI. So he's a big underperformer. I just got something in my mind that Wirtz could go big this season. Maybe relishing that new role under Iraola, partnered with Isak, obviously Szoboszlai. Whether they get Barcola on the left would, I think, probably add to that attacking potential. I just like him though. It's 7.5 million, so he's probably quite undervalued, I think, this season. Maybe could still be 8 million, but I'm not going to complain. He's going into my team. And I think Newcastle, just because of that change they've seen in pre-season, obviously Eddie Howe leaving, their new manager coming in. The new manager hasn't particularly had much time to embed that new squad. He hasn't really had any signings to add. I just think this could be a fixture, Newcastle away game week 1 to target. Obviously, it's not a conventional fixture you would consider, but just something to consider. Now, that 5th midfielder I've gone for is Enzo Lefebvre. Primarily when I'm considering midfielders for FPL, I just want players that are on free kicks, got some corner exposure, and penalties as well. And Enzo Lefebvre is really that player. Now, there's a little bit of penalties he could be sharing with Diarra, but I'm not certain that Diarra will be starting for game week 1 this season. Ipswich away, Fulham at home, Brentford away. Really good fixtures to start the season with Sunderland. They are followed with Arsenal and Man City. So if you want something that's a little bit more explosive and differential to start that season, I think Sunderland players are something you could be considering. He's 6 million penalties, as I said, last season, 5 goals, 6 assists, 12 XGI. So he was performing just in line with what he was expected to. And he's a good DEFCON midfielder as well. I think he was averaging around 9.5 DEFCON per 90 last season. You could swap him maybe for Pascal Gross, for example. He's only 5.5 million. And you could save that, obviously that saving there of 0.5 million, maybe reinvest it elsewhere. The only reservation I've got against Pascal Gross for game week 1 is that because Brighton are playing in the Conference League playoffs, they're having to go away to a team in Norway. I forgot exactly what they're called, but they've got basically a game before game week 1, and then they've got a game in between game week 1 and game week 2. So I'm just concerned that potentially Gross, 35 years old, if he does start that first fixture, could he be benched in game week 1? Or even if he doesn't, but maybe Brighton don't get a particularly positive score, could he be starting that midweek fixture between game week 1 and game week 2? Potentially. I just think with Pascal Gross, because he's also not a massive DEFCON midfielder, I don't necessarily need to go for him in game week 1. I'm not particularly short of money. I can just consider him further down the line in that first wild card, for example. So I just like Enzo Lefebvre for what he offers: DEFCON, set pieces, penalties, an all-round good midfielder. Now moving on to the forward line, I've gone for João Pedro, Calvert-Lewin, and I've gone for Gonzalo Garcia as well as sort of a mega differential. Now, first reason, João Pedro is owned by 55% of managers. He's going to be a big threat to your rank if you don't go with him. And obviously you can kind of say, well, isn't that the sort of reason you should be going with Haaland? Well, João Pedro is only 7.5 million in the game this season, 15 goals, 9 assists last season. XGI was 16.9. So he actually overperformed his expected data quite a lot. But I still think with Alonso this season, we'll still be expecting João Pedro to be starting. Danny Welbeck could maybe threat his minutes a little bit, but I'm not too certain. So I just think for his money, João Pedro offers a good route into Chelsea's team here. I'm not really going to be concerned about whether he'll be starting or whether he'll be getting benched. It's just an easy decision in my mind to be taken. The second striker I've gone with here is Dominic Calvert-Lewin. 25% of managers backing him. Forest, Brentford, Brighton, the first fixtures here. Last season, really good season for Leeds. 14 goals, 2 assists, 16 XGI. So in line with what is expected again. Penalties, he's been having a good pre-season. Scored against RB Leipzig. Nothing really to explain here again. Calvert-Lewin, just a good striker. We saw last season when he is fit, he'll be starting. He'll be getting nearer to 90 minutes. Obviously, they do have some other strikers that Leeds could be using, but I think they'll only be coming off the bench. So I think Calvert-Lewin again is quite safe. And the third option I've gone for here is someone who hasn't played in the Premier League before, but it's a new signing for Fulham. Gonzalo Garcia, signing from Real Madrid. He's coming at 6 million. I think Muniz won't be starting much this season. I think based on last season, when he wasn't injured, he still wasn't really getting massive minutes. Obviously, Garcia's coming for a fair bit of money for Fulham, so I think he'll be starting. I'm pretty sure he'll be on penalties. So that's just the routes to points that I like in FPL. It's something I'm always considering. Let's just monitor what Arbiola might be saying before game week 1 if Garcia will be starting. And I might consider him. That game week 2 fixture away Sunderland is quite appealing, obviously. If I'm not too certain on Garcia starting, I might consider Brobby for Sunderland. He's not on penalties, but his data's quite good, really, for Brobby. Good World Cup for Netherlands. 7 goals, 2 assists last season, 7 XGI, so roughly in line. If he does start, it's just a nice synergy I can be targeting with Enzo Lefebvre midfield. And yeah, he's not on penalties, but again, something I could be considering for 6 million. Okay, so just looking at maybe a variation of this draft in case there's a couple players you don't like. Something I'd be considering is maybe getting Alexander Isak into the team. So I think if I was to take out Garcia and if I was to put Isak in, who seems that he'll be playing game week 1, there's no question about it. He's actually had a good preseason for Liverpool this year. Putting Isak, currently in 3 million short. I think what I'd be changing here is I'd be taking in Bueno out, take Tarkowski out. And if I was to put in Pascal Gross here, who's midfielder, Put Diego Dallo in as well. We've now got 0.5 spare. This is maybe just something I'm considering as a slight variation on that draft. I could also potentially push up Kinski to a 5 million goalkeeper. For example, maybe Roofs, the Sunderland goalkeeper, Ipswich at home, first game week is a good fixture. I'm also there, so I'm also considering something like this as a draft. The reason I like this one particularly as well, it's just that synergy of the Liverpool attack here against the Newcastle team that we aren't really sure what they'll be putting forward. It's also taking out a little bit of weight in the midfield. It's putting that Pascal Gross here. He's a good cheap midfielder for penalties, set pieces. A bit of attacking return as well, only 5.5 million. Putting Diego Dallo in, as I said, he's a good attacking fullback for Man United. Not DEFCON strong, but something I'm liking, only selected by 3% of managers. And Roofs as well. A good Sunderland goalkeeper. The market odds for a Sunderland clean sheet, they're okay. 5% of managers selected him. And it's also a good first 3 fixtures, just in case David Raya was to pick up an injury. You could also maybe start Roofs in Game Week 2 over David Raya, Sunderland at home to Fulham. You're still keeping Williams, still keeping Lefay, and still keeping João Pedro and Fernandes. So you're not losing the core of the team. It's still got lots of differentials in here. Okay, now just looking at the ownership perspective. So as I just said, Roofs, Dallo, they're low owned. Gabriel, only 27% of managers backing him so far. Verts, Gross, Enzo Lefay, Isak as well, all below ownership of 15%. So I just really like this sort of dynamic as a way of attacking Game Week 1 with differentials, but not just differentials for the sake of it, but they've got good underlying stats. As I said about Szoboszlai, Isak probably is the main penalty taker, but with Isak and Szoboszlai, I've got both routes there covered to penalties. Verts as well. If Isak is to score, probably a good chance the number 10 will be the assister. So I've got Verts there, and that's just a good synergy I like. Pascal Gross, obviously a cheaper option. I'll just be monitoring what happens in that first playoff game. But I do like him as an option. Cheap penalty set pieces. The only thing is, again, it's just minutes I'm being wary of. But otherwise, I like this draft. This is just a different variation I'm looking at. Okay, so just to end the video, I thought I'd go on a little bit of a ramble about why maybe you do want to consider Haaland, because obviously lots of people are. I think he's about 75% owned, so definitely something to consider. Just for the purposes of this then, I will have a look at a Haaland draft. So first and foremost, obviously put Haaland in the team. Now, just doing that based on what we've got currently, was overspent by 9.5 million, so lots of weight we're going to have to take out. Now, the first thing you'd be doing is taking out Gabriel, because that's more of a premium pick without having Haaland. And what I'd probably do here is Mascara as my second Arsenal defender and partnered with Raya here as well. Obviously, just bear in mind that Arsenal do appear to be in the market for another defender, whether that's Kwanzaa or Konsa. So just see what's happening before you lock in your team for Game Week 1. Now, still overspent by 7 million. The next thing I'd probably be doing here is taking out Tarkowski. I'd probably put in Dallo here. So Dallo, as I said, a nice attacking fullback. Isn't a great option for DEFCON, but does offer you some attacking threat. Now, because I've obviously got too many players from Man United, I'm going to have to take out one of these midfielders. Now, I absolutely will not go without Bruno Fernandes, so it's going to have to be in Mbeumo. And for the purpose of this, I'll put in Pascal Gross just as that 5.5 million midfielder, someone to consider. I'm still overspent by 3.5 million, so it's already taken out 3 different players here. The next one would be Nico Williams. Now, in terms of cheap defenders that you could consider, if I just filter on what's there for 4 million, just look at ownership currently. So, yeah, we're looking at Issa Diop. He's owned by 18.5. 2 Coventry defenders, but obviously they're away at Arsenal, so I don't really want them for Bench Boost 1. Again, more Ipswich defenders. I like O'Shea. He's definitely a differential. Now, it doesn't really matter because it's still just a cheap Ipswich defender, but the issue with O'Shea is that although his DEFCON looks strong, he's been playing right back in pre-season, I believe, and Greaves and Diop have been playing centre back, so it does just harm his DEFCON potential a bit. There's other options like 09, for example, but I don't really buy into him. I'm not even sure he will start. I think someone will come in place there. And even if he does start in Game Week 1, I can't imagine he'll be starting in Game Week 2. So I'd put in Diop there just for purposes. Still overspent by 2.5. Now, I'm not really a fan of any 5 million midfielders, so I'm going to keep Verts there. You could potentially take Verts to Njai, for example, if you did want to downgrade that to save 1.5 million now. Njai should have penalties for Everton. There's there's been a little bit of conflicting evidence in pre-season. He didn't take a penalty, then he did take a penalty, so just keep on there. But you could get Njai potentially instead of Verts. I think what I'd be doing is just maybe looking at some of the cheaper strikers. So one I like is Ollie McBurney, for example, 5.5 million, penalty taken forward. Now, he does have Man United in game week 1, but Coventry away in game week 2. That's just a nice way to sort of contrast the team, particularly if in game week 2 we're a little bit unsure whether Calafiori might be starting. You could potentially therefore put McBurney as your striker there. The other teams have good fixtures still, so there's no real concern in that from that perspective, but we're still overspent by 0.5. So, like I say, we could take out Verts for Njai. This is one move you could consider, and obviously then you underspent by 1 million, so you've got more money to put in somewhere. Alternatively, there's one big sort of differential that's not really been spoken about, and potentially, if I just restore Verts there, you could maybe look at Jorginho, the Brighton striker. Now, the reason I'm going to mention Jorginho here is only owned by 1% of teams, but because Brighton have sold Welbeck to Chelsea, there's currently a void in striker that someone will need to assume for Brighton. Now, we saw against Roma last week that Jorginho started that game. He got a goal and assist, but he did come off in the 60th minute, so you just got to be careful about managing that expectations. I believe there's Kostuglas, I think you pronounce his name, for Brighton, who could also play. We'll just have a look at the options there. Kostuglas, Zimas, Evan Ferguson won't be playing. So just in case they don't sign a striker, maybe you can consider him as a 5.5 forward. With Jorginho, I think we've been here before. I think it was last season. It just doesn't really work out. So it's one to consider. Like I say, you could do Njai. You could therefore keep Calvert-Lewin, for example, and then you've still got a million elsewhere to upgrade. Whether that'd be another defender, for example, maybe you want to put Diop back up to Williams, for example. That could work. Like I say, a Haaland draft, by no means is it bad. It's just simply my mind that for Bench Boost 1, I want to be sort of maximising the potential of points I could be earning. And whereas here, we've got an Ipswich defender, a Hull City forward against Man United, and maybe not minute certain, and we've got a forward here who's not minute certain. So it's just a little bit of risk that we're having to factor in. Whereas obviously without Haaland, you can kind of pack it with minute secure players. And it's just an alternative to look at. But I thought it'd just be worth looking at a Haaland draft because obviously it's very popular and for good reason. So anyway, so that's where my Game Week 1 draft is currently. Bench Boost 1, no Haaland, and every penny of that 100 million invested into the full playing 15 squad. Haaland could go big, and after Game Week 1, I could be questioning why on earth did I do that? But I think that's what makes this decision interesting. I'm not just owning Haaland out of risk, I'm also trying to invest the rest of that money into the squad to maximise my points. And right now, I think that's the right decision to take. Now, we've still got plenty of time before the Game Week 1 deadline, the Community Shield, more friendlies, and all the more opportunity for transfers and injuries to happen. But unless something major happens, I think this is pretty close to the team I'll be taking into the Game Week 1 deadline. Let me know in the comments below what you're doing with Haaland and what your latest draft is currently looking like. Now, if you found this video helpful, like and subscribe. It really helps the channel to continue to grow. There'll be plenty more content to come through the season, including my final team selection before the deadline. So thanks for watching, and I hope to see you in the next video.